Okay, the MCU in chronological order continues with the 20th entry being Thor Ragnarok, the titular character's third outing. So, the overall premise of Thor Ragnarok is as follows: Thor's sister Hela has returned to Asgard after the death of Odin. In so doing she pretty much banishes Thor and Loki off of Asgard, and they both wind up on Sakaar. While in Sakaar, Thor discovers that the Hulk has been there for a long while. He also meets up with another Asgardian known as Valkyrie, who has pretty much exiled herself from Asgard, but she also has a history with Hela. So, and also Loki is on Asgard as well, is on Sakaar as well. Sorry. So pretty much Thor has to get all three of these guys together in order to take down Hela and save Asgard from Ragnarok, which is pretty much the end of the world. So yeah, that is the overall gist of Thor Ragnarok. Let's try and make this review as short and sweet as possible. Overall, Thor Ragnarok is a lot of fun. The first two Thor movies should have been what Ragnarok was, which is just this gonzo, goofy, just outer space adventure with insane visuals, interesting locations, and just a sense of fun and a sense of humor. The first two Thor movies lacked the sense of humor, and this movie had that in spades. Now, I think Waititi put the humor in spots where maybe he shouldn't have put the humor, and then there are scenes where he uses the humor to his advantage. Like it's a typical Marvel template where it uses humor at the worst possible moments. But to Takia's credit, he does have emotional scenes that he does let breathe out, and he doesn't undercut it with a horrible joke. He actually builds upon what we see into something that can be more threatening or more hopeful or optimistic. So, in that aspect, I think Taika Waititi overall did a really good job directing this movie. Up to this point, I was not overly familiar with Waititi as a director, but after seeing Ragnarok, it made me interested to want to see movies like Jojo Rabbit and stuff like that. And yeah, I think Taika Waititi is very talented as a filmmaker, and he's also a pretty funny guy as well, because he plays a character called Korg in this movie, who was like a rock monster, who Thor befriends once he arrives on Sakaar. So that was cool as well. And so yeah, and that's my overall gist of how I feel about Thor Ragnarok. Now I'm gonna go over everything with positives and negatives and try and make this review as short as I possibly can. So, the positives first. The cast in this movie is mostly really good. To me, Chris Hemsworth gives his best performance as Thor in this movie. He actually has a chance to show off his sense of humor, and Hemsworth, he's a really funny guy when you take the reins off him and you just let him be loose. Like, this is the first time where Thor actually feels like he has a lot of charisma to him, like he's really funny. But to Hemsworth's credit, he knows how to balance the emotional drama with his comedic with his comedic timing, and it makes for a very fun performance. Like, when he needs to be serious, he's serious. A good example is when he and Loki, with the help of Doctor Strange, whose cameo is extended from the end of his movie in this movie, it's pretty much Doctor Strange tells Thor and Loki the location of Odin, and he sends them to Norway. And of course, we find out that Odin is dying, and he shares his last moment with his two sons. This is a good emotional scene that has a good payoff, because once Odin, dies, then Hela emerges, because Hela was only being held back because Odin was still alive. And just Chris Hemsworth's performance in this scene is great. Like, you can see the emotional heartbreak when he sees Odin die, and you can see the dread and almost fear when he sees Hela pretty much appear in Norway and destroy Mjolnir. Like, she crushes Thor's hammer without any hesitation and really builds herself up as a real threat. And Chris Hemsworth's performance, like I said, very, very good. And of course, when he goes to Sakaar, his sense of comedy is actually really funny. Just seeing him react to certain things. I love the recreation of the haunted tunnel from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory before he sees the Grandmaster. That shit's hilarious. And his over-the-top reactions to everything. So yeah, I think Chris Hemsworth, just by giving Thor an individual personality, was great. He shows a lot. It's a lot of charisma and a lot of fun to watch Thor in this movie. Of course, his chemistry with everyone in the cast also works as well. Like, Hemsworth and Tom Hiddleston, they've had good chemistry going back to the first Thor movie. And I actually like Loki better in Thor Ragnarok than I did in the first two Thor movies, because this movie really starts Loki's road to redemption, but you still have that mischievous side of him as well. And I love when Thor first returns to Asgard. He instantly can tell that Loki is posing as Odin, and this is where you get the whole recreation of Thor: The Dark World, where you have the actors acting it out. You have the Matt Damon cameo, the Sam. You have Liam Hemsworth, Chris Hemsworth's younger brother, and you also have Dr. Alan Grant himself also in that cameo. So it's fun. It was a fun recreation, and it's also fun seeing Anthony Hopkins act like Tom Hiddlesworth Loki. I thought that was fun as well, and it gives Anthony Hopkins a chance to do a little bit of comedy himself, because Anthony Hopkins is also has moments where he can be very, very funny as an actor when you give him the chance. So I like all that stuff. It's great. And like I said, Tom Hiddleston as Loki was, even though I've grown tired of the character of Loki, Hiddleston will always be the character, and he'll always put on a good performance as the character, because you can tell he has a lot of love for said character. But it's all in how you handle the character of Loki is what keeps him interesting. And in this movie, I think what he did a good job at keeping him interesting. And all that, Loki has some of my favorite moments in this entire movie, like when Thor and Hulk are first fighting in the gladiator pit, and the Hulk just ragdolls Thor like he did Loki in the Avengers, and seeing Loki's reaction to that is absolutely hilarious. It's great stuff. Big ups to Tom Hiddleston. He looks like he was having more fun doing this movie than he has the previous times he's played Loki. You have Idris Elba. You have, like I said, you have the Hulk in this movie. Mark Ruffalo. He returns as the Incredible Hulk, and I like how Ragnarok handled Hulk, and I like the whole aspect of Hulk and Thor being being in a buddy cop type of movie with them working together. The first Avengers movie teased a little bit of a friction between the two characters, but it was more of a friendly competition. And in this, we get to see more of that. Like Hulk's initial appearance as the champion of Sakaar was great, and the fight scene in the gladiator pit was a hell of a lot of fun. But the best part is just Thor and Hulk pretty much forming a bond and forming a friendship. And this is actually the beginning of Bruce's character arc that ends in Endgame, where basically Bruce has been the Hulk for 2 years, and he did not know about it. And it's the sense of Bruce is now losing control, and now he has to try and find the balance now he has to balance out being both the Hulk and Bruce Banner. And of course, when you get to Endgame, we find out how he was able to rectify that problem. But just in terms of just what the Hulk brings to the movie, hell of a lot of fun. Like the chemistry he has with Chris Hemsworth, it's good stuff. And of course, Hulk has some really cool fight scenes. Like the whole fight scene with Thor in the Gladiator Pit's a lot of fun. And then when he's fighting this big giant wolf on Asgard, that's also hell of a lot of fun as well. So Hulk, as always, has some cool moments. And like I said, just the budding friendship that forms between the two characters was great stuff. And Mark Ruffalo, hey, listen, I will always prefer Edward Norton over Mark Ruffalo, but for the MCU version of the Hulk, Mark Ruffalo does do an overall good job at playing the character. So I can't all the way complain. You also have Tessa Thompson, who is the character of Valkyrie. I ain't the world's biggest Tessa Thompson fan as an actress, but in this movie I thought she was okay. I like her story of being a fallen Valkyrie who had a run-in with Hela, and because Hela killed her friends, she's pretty much become a recluse, and now is just more or less a scavenger / junker while on Sakaar. But she also has a working relationship with the Grandmaster. But I like how it's Thor who helps Valkyrie rediscover her warrior spirit throughout the course of the movie. And I also like how Hulk and Banner, kind of have like a subtle crush on Valkyrie as well. That was actually pretty funny. And Valkyrie does have some kick-ass scenes when you get towards the end of the movie, so I got no complaints with that. Like the whole escape from Sakaar is actually a hell of a lot of fun, and it reminds me of the TIE Fighters stuff from Star Wars. It's good shit. I actually like it a lot. Speaking of which, let's talk about the Grandmaster, played by Jeff Goldblum, who is, to me, the best villain of this movie. To me personally, is the Grandmaster. Not to say I don't like Hela. I mean, Hela is cool for what she does, but Jeff Goldblum, to me, you just watch this movie and you're basically watching an alien version of Jeff Goldblum. Hell, some might question that Jeff Goldblum is an alien because he's so zany. The Grandmaster is a hell of a lot of fun, and Jeff Goldblum just brings that. He just brings his quirkiness to this character, to the character of the Grandmaster, and it stands out and is a hell of a lot of fun. Like Jeff Goldblum, the scenes that he has with Thor and them talking is hilarious. Like he sounds like a used car salesman and someone who's like very into what he's doing. It's hilarious shit. So I got no complaints with that. Even though Jeff Goldblum's he's not a physically imposing threat, but he's just a hell of a lot of fun as like this guy who's like the ruler of this planet, and he uses gladiator matches for entertainment, and he just. But I like the nuances of his character. I like how he doesn't like certain words to be said. I like his sense of humor. The funniest scene is where he kills his cousin Carlo after he's like, "I pardon you," from Life. Awesome joke. You gotta. I didn't do the joke justice. You gotta watch it. The joke is that hilarious. So yeah, Jeff Goldblum as the Grandmaster, I got no complaints with that whatsoever. He is absolutely hilarious. And now we go to Cate Blanchett as the character of Hela. Now listen, for what Cate Blanchett brought to the role of Hela, she gave her a physically imposing presence, and she did fine. She was fine. You know, her performance was over the top. It was goofy in a lot of areas, but it served the tone of the movie. I don't think Hela will go down as the greatest MCU villain of all time, but in terms of a Thor villain, I thought Hela was fine. She was an imposing threat. She didn't pull no punches. She killed the Warriors 3, Fandal, Volstaff, and Hogan. The Warriors 3 are all dead. Of course, they're underutilized, and in this movie, they're underutilized in the worst way. And where the hell's Lady Sif? Lady Sif is nowhere to be found. Big letdown. The biggest complaint I'll have for all three Thor movies is that Lady Sif and the Warriors 3 either get consistently misused, or they just are not even referenced or appear. This is the worst of them all because Lady Sif doesn't even appear, and Volstaff and Fandal, they get killed the second Hela comes to Asgard. They get killed in a matter of 5 seconds, and Hogan, he puts up a little bit of a fight, but he gets slaughtered as well. Like, why does Marvel hate the Warriors 3? Why do they hate the Warriors 3 and Lady Sif, and why do they flog Loki so much? It could be so much better if it's Thor and Loki teaming up with Lady Sif and the Warriors 3. That could make for a better climax. You know, with the Lady Sif and the Warriors 3 teaming up with Thor, Loki, and Valkyrie and Hulk to have their own little mini Revengers team. But no, we don't get that. And they're just used to beef up Hela's body count, which I wasn't a fan of. Because you could have had any random Asgardian do that. Have the body count. Instead of wasting Volstaff, Fandal, and Hogan. They could have died. I'm not against them dying, but give them more of a warrior's death and not just a what the hell is this kind of death. Yeah, that didn't sit right with me, and it still doesn't sit right with me. That's one of the aspects of the movie that I absolutely loathe. But overall, I liked Hela for what she was. She had good on-screen chemistry with Chris Hemsworth, and I like how Hela's threatening of Thor is what enables him to pretty much go past having the hammer for his source of power. And he has this nice little final talk with Odin, where he pretty much tells Odin, "Are you the god of hammers, or are you the god of thunder?" And this is where Thor becomes like, almost like Raiden in a way, and a really cool scene. So yeah, good shit, good stuff. Other side characters, you got Carl Urban, who's a character called Scourge. I like the character of Scourge. I like how he has a little mini arc, how he first joins Hela, but you can clearly tell that he's not all for the slaughter that's going around. And I like how at the end of the movie he grows a spine and pretty much fights off Hela's forces and helps Asgard and helps the Asgardians leave the planet. Carl Urban, I thought he was, for what Carl Urban brought to the character of Scourge, I would like to have him have a little more screen time, a little more development. But for the little mini character arc he was given, I don't have too much to complain about. At least he was given something, was able to do something. So I can't really overly complain. In terms of the characters of Korg and Mike, who are Thor's friends on Sakaar, hey, listen, I like the character of Korg in this movie. I thought Taika Waititi was actually really funny at playing him as like a Polynesian surfer dude. I thought that was actually pretty fun. I like some of the conversations that he has. I like how he mistook Loki for a ghost. He's like, "Get pissed off, ghost." That's funny shit. That's just some good stuff right there. That's where Taika Waititi uses the comedy to his advantage. So that's good stuff. In terms of this movie's visuals and the action sequences, this movie is like a Jack Kirby comic book come to life. This movie is vibrant with colors. The whole look of Sakaar is unique. I like how it's unique, it's colorful, it's completely off the wall and zany. I love this stuff. This is the Thor movie I always wanted. But I also like how, Taika Waititi also created some hellish landscapes as well. Like when we first see Thor at the beginning of this movie, he's being held captive by this being called Suter, who is the one to bring Ragnarok to Asgard. And I like how he's voiced by the great Clancy Brown. Now, I both like and I both hate this scene all at the same time. I like this scene for the overall look. I like the look of this hellish landscape. I like the look of Suter. I like how he's a physically imposing threat. I do not like how his speech is undercut by comedy, is undercut by forced comedy. That I did not care for. That I did not like. However, I do like when Thor breaks his chains and you have "Immigrant Song" by Led Zeppelin playing in the background while he's doing his fight scene. And I also like how Taika Waititi came back around, and when Thor unleashes his God of Thunderness on everyone and on Asgard in the final battle, you also get "Immigrant Song" playing in the background as well. It's official. "Immigrant Song" is officially the overall theme song of the character of Thor. Every time he makes an appearance, play that song during his fight scenes. Nothing else matters anymore. But I also like how, as a last-ditch effort to stop Hela, because Hela's power comes from Asgard itself. In order to stop her, you have to unleash Ragnarok, and that's how Thor is able to. He's able to save the Asgardians by destroying Asgard by unleashing Ragnarok. But throughout the course of the movie, he learns that Asgard is not a place; it's a people. The people are Asgard, not the planet itself. Which is why even though he was reluctant, he had no problem making that final decision, because as long as his people are safe, they have a chance. So unleashing Suter, he destroys Asgard, and that's cool stuff. I also like how Idris Elba, Heimdall, he has actually some more to do in this movie. He actually has some fight scenes, and it's actually pretty cool. Like, I think Idris Elba from the first two Thor movies, he was kind of underutilized in some aspects, and those movies didn't really have a whole lot to do. At least in this, he does have a lot to do. He's basically Thor's eyes and his inside man while on Asgard, making sure that Heimdall has all these civilians safe as possible, even though Hela eventually finds them. I like that stuff. It's good. I like seeing Idris Elba have a little something to do in these Thor movies, because he's constantly overutilized, much like Lady Sif in the Warriors 3. I think I covered just about everything there is to cover in terms of the main story. Like, the cast is great. Taika Waititi's direction's a hell of a lot of fun. The action set pieces are cool and unique. Like I said, the whole third act of Asgard and Thor becoming the God of Thunder, that shit is absolutely awesome. Very comic booky. The emotional aspects of this movie, they really, really hit. Doctor Strange has a nice extended cameo from the mid-credit scene of his solo movie. Yeah, and then you have the mid-credit scene where Loki and Thor and the ship are attacked by Thanos, leading into Avengers Infinity War. So yeah, that's pretty much all I got to say really about Thor Ragnarok. At the end of the day, this is a solid 8 out of 10. I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. Yeah, I got my qualms with it and I got my problems with it. It's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but it does what the first two Thor movies did not do, which is have a sense of fun and take Thor on this wacky adventure where he finds himself. Yes, this is another movie where Thor finds himself, but this is actually a moment, but it's actually something that Thor needs, because it helps him, especially when you get to Infinity War. So yeah, 8 out of 10 for Thor Ragnarok. Let me know your thoughts in the comment sections down below. Like the video and subscribe, and I'll check you back next time for more.